Is it just me, or does now feel like a really good time to talk about how art and nature can be our sanctuary in difficult times? I'm Jo Wright, the Creative Director at Take Two, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging and paying my respects to the Gundungurra people, the traditional custodians of the land I'm coming to you from today. In this week's Friday Feature Artist, we're so pleased to welcome back a friend of Take Two, artist, photographer, and mentor Karen Olson. Karen's creative journey has always reached beyond the act of making. For her, art is a way of processing, healing, and gently reconnecting with what matters most. In this episode, we're marking a very special moment, the launch of Karen's new course with Take Two called Focus and Flow. It's a course that reflects everything Karen lives and breathes in her work, exploring the relationship between art and nature through forest immersion, handmade papermaking, and mindful photography. Karen shares how her training in forest therapy has influenced her practice and how working with natural materials and sensory experience has helped her, and now others, find quietness, clarity, and creative rhythm. Life is certainly full of ups and downs, and for many of us right now, things feel pretty uncertain and heavy, like there's an invisible weight we're carrying. But today, let's consider this a shared weight, because here we are together now, having a conversation about art and nature, undeniably two very good things. So whether you've been making art for decades or you're just feeling the pull to reconnect with your creative self, I hope you find something grounding and meaningful in this episode and in our new course, Focus and Flow, Restorative Art with Karen Olson. Let's take a breath, let's immerse ourselves, and let's dive in. Hi, Karen.
Oh, so nice to see you.
It's so nice to see you. Did you take a breath as well?
Take a breath as well. And I just want to take a minute to thank you and the entire team has been so wonderful to work with. And I really, really appreciate the support. I really do.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear it. And you've been an absolute pleasure to work with as well, Karen. So thanks for joining us today. And thanks everyone who's joining and tuning in live, as well as listening back or watching this in the future. If you are here live, we'd love you to say a quick hello in the chat and let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always wonderful to see people from all around the world enjoying conversations like this one. And like I said in the intro, here we are together today to talk about two beautiful things, art and nature. It's a good opportunity to take a breath and perhaps set ourselves off for a day or an evening ahead of joy and lightness. Karen, how are you? Your course starts soon, very soon with us, and doors are closing on Sunday. With your interaction in the community group beginning early next week. How's it all feeling as we kick off?
Feeling really beautiful, actually, because I've started a little bit in the Facebook group and starting to meet people as they're coming in and finding out who they are. And it's just been wonderful meeting everyone. And I feel like we have a shared community already and we haven't even begun yet. So I'm anxious to start in earnest and really bring to life whatever it is that anybody has in their heart that wants to do.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how things evolve, and as you get to know the students and everybody starts working through their processes and their art. We have a good morning from Ursula. Good morning, Jo and Karen. Thrilled to be watching along this morning. We have Marion. Good morning. Marion from Toowoomba in Queensland. Slightly warmer climate than where I am in the Southern Highlands of New South Wales, Marion, but nice to see you. We have Erin, student right here. Nice to see you, Erin. Keep those hellos and keep the conversation going in the chat, folks. We'll be together for about an hour, if not a little bit more. To talk about all sorts of things, not just the course that's kicking off. But we have had a conversation with Karen in the past. So if you enjoy this one, I'm no doubt you will enjoy that one as well, which you can find on our website or on YouTube. We'll also be dropping this episode as a podcast, so I highly recommend anybody who's listening to take a look at the show notes and the episode description, because we will be linking to the images which we show in this episode. I think it's also important to mention that in this conversation we might touch on the topics of grief and healing. So please use your discretion if you're feeling in a particularly sensitive place at the moment. You can always come back and listen to this conversation another time. And this podcast and this episode of our Friday Feature Artist is for educational and entertainment purposes. So it's not a substitute for professional health or psychological advice. So I just wanted to get that on the table nice and early so that we can freely dive into wherever this conversation might go. We have Beverly watching from my bed in the UK as it's midnight. Beverly, thank you for joining in at midnight. This is a nice way to go to bed, I reckon. Okay, Karen. So I wanted to start off not just for our listeners, but perhaps for anybody who's unfamiliar with your work or new to you as an artist. I'd love to hear from you. How would you describe your work? And while you're chatting, I might show a few images and that will help us guide the conversation. So how would you describe your work to somebody who's listening in and not watching, or who's never come across your work before?
Well, that's always a question that I have a hard time describing, because I do a variety of things, but mostly they're based on conceptual ideas, and they center around things having to do with nature or human-nature connection. Sometimes there's quite a bit of neuropsychology thrown in there, or some processing of grief or post-traumatic stress or things like that. So how human-nature connection really supports our mental health. And so that's where like the background study work comes from, and that's what the images are hoping to support.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at your some of your work. Here's a flip book that you kindly sent us with some of your photography work, and we'll just take a look at this in general as some layouts, and then we'll zoom into some images. So, was this a recent project, Karen?
Yes, this is my most recent project. I had created the imagery back in January, and I was trying to figure out what the heart sense meant, how could one cultivate it, and furthermore, how could one articulate it? And that was a quite a difficult thing to do, but I found when I got back from my forest immersion, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that the words just came flowing out. So I was able to connect the words to the images, and I put it together in a little flip book.
Yeah. Well, we might zoom into some of those images, and perhaps you can describe them in a little more detail of what we're seeing and what they're made up of, these particular images of artwork.
Okay. Yeah, so this series was made in a little different way than I've ever done before. Normally when I make photographic images, they are layers of imagery. So they're captures that I take. So it could be light, it could be shadow, it could be color, it could be texture. So I take some of that and intertwine it with what I call intimate landscapes, and they become what I call multisensory imagery. But these particular ones had an additional layer. I actually painted some very fine Japanese paper and then coated it. I painted it with dyes and inks. I coated it with beeswax. I cracked the beeswax and then photographed the background against the light. So you could see some of the little cracklatures in the photographs, and that was the start, and that was the background for the imagery for all of these pieces.
Beautiful. I'll show a couple more here. It's a lovely series. It's so peaceful to look at it, and you can sort of, once you start understanding the processes involved and the layering involved, they become even more meaningful. I'd love to find out when you talk about heart sense, what you mean by that, and how you connect that to work like this.
Yeah, so that's what I really wanted to write about. The heart sense is a descriptive term for what the heart is actually doing when it goes about in the world. So the heart is a perceptive organ. We think of it as just the thing that pumps the blood, but really it has more neurons than our brain has. So this tells us that it's taking in information even more than our brain takes in information. And it is the first thing to get the information. So then it takes in all this information, then it goes to the brain, and the brain says, okay, this is what we're going to do with it. And then it sends back down to the heart. So this is recent information that has been scientifically proven, actually. So it's really quite interesting. And
wow.
It really tells us that there's a sense that we have that has not, we are like in our brains all the time these days, right? I mean, we are there processing, figuring out, doing the thing all the time. But the heart is really sensing things like another sense. So yeah, so that's what I really want to write about, because it's complex, but it's so fascinating.
It is so fascinating. I mean, I've heard about the gut having its own sort of brain or signals, but I've never really heard about the heart. I guess the heart might be the new gut that we all start paying attention to. Paying attention. Well, I mean, it's always been a thing, hasn't it, that we talk about our heart and how our heart feels. And to me, that's always felt quite abstract, because it's like, well, I know about the thoughts, and I know if I've got butterflies in my stomach, but I've never been very tuned into the heart. So this is absolutely fascinating for me to hear about. Is there a way that you connect the idea of the heart sense to the actual images you choose to capture and then layer into your artwork? Is it about that feeling?
Yes, it's about that feeling. And I think because they're a little more complex than most imagery that I have done before, and that heart sense is a complex thing. So it's also that the imagery is not very sharp or clear. So this is also something that, to me, it's about the senses more than it is about the actual landscape itself. So I was trying to depict that in a way that I could best do it visually.
Wonderful. And perhaps we can take a look at some more work where you're turning it into, and this is a separate body of work, but where you're turning it into a 3-dimensional object. And I'll just put some more images up, and if you can talk through some of this as we go, that would be wonderful. So this one's called Deep Awareness.
Yeah, so this is also quite new. This, although I created the paper last year, I had a little bit of difficulty in a physical way, so I was kind of limited to how much I could walk. And I was deciding that I could really discover what was in my backyard to make paper with. And this paper that is the background of this image and part of the sculpture is from the Himalayan balsam plant, which went completely wild in my yard last year. And I just decided to give it a go. It looked really promising. And so I actually will describe the process in class when we get to the paper making section. But this is, I actually made lace from this fiber with thread and the cooked fiber. So that is what you're seeing in the background there. And then the foreground is a print that's been soaked in beeswax. That this imagery came from my forest immersion experience.
Right. Yes, we're going to talk all about this experience, the forest immersion experience, because I think it's absolutely fascinating. I'll show a couple more of these more three-dimensional works. Just gives everybody a really good perspective of the range of work that we're discussing. So this one is called Balance Point.
Yeah, so this is just a little different. I haven't quite dove deeply into using dyes on paper. It's something that I want to do this summer when I can be outside. So this is Kakishibu on a Jumchi paper. This Jumchi is a felted felted Korean paper. I'm sorry. And then I added the dye. So I want to start working with a little bit of color in my papers when I make them. So this is just the beginning of that.
Fantastic. And one last one, Deep Perception.
Yes, this is similar to the earlier one. It has that Himalayan balsam lace and a beeswax coated image.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for describing those. And like I said, we'll have the link to the images in our show notes because I think it's really important people don't miss out on seeing the artwork. Also got some feedback in the chat, Karen. So Erin has said otherworldly dreamscapes, and Catherine, simple, beautiful. So you mentioned forest immersion, and I think some people might be familiar with these terms, but these might be new terms to some people. So I'd love to understand what forest immersion is, and we can show some of your experiences around this. And I also wanted to give you a shout out because I understand you've just been certified as a forest therapy guide. Is that right?
Yes, I've just finished the course. So after we filmed after we filmed specifically the forest bathing module, I realized I really wanted to dive deeper into the practice of forest bathing, and I wanted to find other people that were doing this. You know, was there a deeper way I could come upon it, or was there a course that I could take that gave me a little bit more expertise? I just didn't know what was available, so I started researching because I loved it. I loved talking about it in the course. So I found the Association of Nature and Forest Therapy Guides, and their ethos aligned with what I had already experienced and knew, and so they were the ones that I chose. So I took a 6-month certification course, and the forest immersion was part of that course. So I went to Costa Rica and spent a week there and learned more. And we had 20 some odd people in the immersion that we worked together. So it was a beautiful time. And I connected with nature in a way that I have never done before. I have to say, I have never felt more alive. And also connected with others in a way I'd never done before. So that was really, really beautiful. I really enjoyed it.
That's incredible. You provided a couple of short videos. I think they're all from that Costa Rican experience. Is that correct?
Yes.
I can show these now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, everyone, we're going to play a few of these little snippets from Karen's forest immersion experience. And again, I would encourage everyone just to listen and take a breath while you're watching these, because I think they convey some of the richness that Karen's talking about. All right, I'll hit play on these. So they're fairly simple videos of being in nature, but especially on that last one, well, perhaps it was my computer, but the audio was really loud with the crickets and the various night sounds. So aside from like stepping into nature and staying put for a while, can you explain what the thinking is behind forest immersion and forest bathing, and what that experience provides you as an artist?
I believe that it's really at its core, it's sensory experience. So it's not really coming into nature and just thinking about it with our sight and our mind and saying, well, this is a beautiful place. I love this place. Or a lot of times when we're walking to get to a point or to get our steps in or to, get from one place to the next. But in forest therapy, we are awakening our senses. So it's a little bit different in that we're connecting with nature on a different level than we maybe normally do. So that is where it begins. And in an immersion like this, we are awakening our senses to a point that we perhaps never have before. And we are learning, in this type of immersion, I was learning to be a guide and I was being guided by others. And the guide does really help you get into that sensory state and be able to connect with nature on a relational level. And that is a little bit different. Now the relationship begins to grow between you and nature, and it becomes a conversation, which is kind of fascinating to me. And I have to say that the first video there, that was my first, when I walked onto the Macaw Lodge, which was on the edge of a botanical garden and in the rainforest. That was where I was sleeping, that was the view from my room. So the cicadas, as we heard them a little bit, but they were so loud. I was hoping to get like the full view of what it was, but there was something about those cicadas that connected with my inner rhythms, and just it was like I went joom, 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 and my nervous system like stayed at this calm base level the entire time. So that was an experience I've never had before, which was so interesting. I'm still about it. It was months ago. So it's neat.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm sure it's not a new concept to anybody really to find some peace or calm in nature, but it takes it up a level if you're having sort of a physical reaction like that, and your body's responding to the sound and everything's humming along. I guess I'm really interested to know how it's connecting then to your art practice as well. So there's the perhaps emotional, physical benefit. And then how do you sort of draw on that to bring it back into the studio and think about it, and whether that's the emotional or physical response or the rhythm that you're talking about, the humming? Yeah, I'm really interested to know if you've worked out. I mean, it's still quite recent, I guess, that you've done some of this work. So
I right away realized that I've already been doing very similar things in my art practice anyway. So I'm letting the materials take the lead. I'm letting the relationship between the materials and my hands and what I'm seeing in nature and what I'm photographing, I'm letting them take the lead, and I'm having a relationship in essence with my materials. So there's a big connection there. So it has actually deepened the connection to the point where I don't second guess that anymore. I think that's the thing. Sometimes we think, I'm just on some other planet and I don't know where I'm going here. but it helped me, it actually grounded me and helped me to realize that I can have this very intimate relationship with nature, and it is going to inform everything that I do.
That sounds wonderful. I'm thinking about a couple of things about the the introduction where we talked a little bit about how the world's a little bit uncertain or heavy at the moment. People are stressed or carrying various types of weight on their shoulders. And I'm wondering how we could sort of tap into some of this more to help ourselves in a day-to-day sort of context. Stepping out to connect with nature sounds a bit diminishing or a bit cliched, but do you have any thoughts around that, around lifting the day-to-day feelings that we might have, no matter what the topic is, no matter what the up or down might be?
I think in answer to that question, I feel like it still is in the answer of relationships. So when we deepen our relationship with nature, we're more able to deepen our relationship with human beings as well, because of course we're all nature. So we're not separate. We are nature. So if we are a little calmer, a little more grounded ourselves, we can show up for our neighbors a little bit better. And I think that's at the core of some of our difficulties. We're not quite realizing how it is we need to be in the world right now. But I think relationship is very important. It may not be the be here, be all, but it is very important. And I think it could have a really beneficial effect on a personal level and in our interconnections with people.
Yeah. I'm sort of thinking I need to furiously scroll down. We're not separate to nature. I think I could take some clues from that sometimes. What about if somebody's not near an abundance of nature? They might be in a city, or they might live in a small apartment. And I think we sometimes come across this with art making as well. People don't necessarily have a studio. People don't necessarily have a lot of space. So I guess it's a similar question. Do you have some ideas for finding these connections with nature, or finding this perspective if it's not possible to sort of go somewhere where you can really deeply immerse yourself?
Yes. Part of my studies with the nature and forest therapy guide training, we had virtual guided sessions. So it was during the winter, and I was in my house the entire time. And it was really fascinating to me that I could connect with simply what was outside, or maybe I had brought in something from outside, or maybe there was something everything in our home is made of nature in some way, shape, or form. And of course, again, we are nature. So there was readily available, even though I was inside and the freezing cold was outside and I was not able to walk. That sensory experience really still grounded me and helped me to have to deepen my relationship with nature. So if you are a shut-in, or if you are somebody that lives in a city, there's nature all around. There's dandelions in the cracks in the street. There's trees every so often. So it's just one of those things. And I find that this practice of sensory experience can also be had in nursing homes. So it's not really limited at all to somebody who can be in a forest. Ideally, it's wonderful if you can, but if you can't, nature is all around us.
I guess sometimes those dandelions in the cracks are even more beautiful because of their scarcity or their persistence.
Yeah.
I loved this. There's a phrase that we've sort of come upon in relation to forest therapy guides and the certification, that the forest is the therapist, the guide opens the door. So just, I guess, looping back to the certification that you've now achieved. Is that how you see it? Do you relate to that statement? The forest is the therapist, the guide opens the door?
Yes, absolutely. And this was something I experienced really through my own just discovery early on, before I even filmed the class. And it was something I could easily talk about in the class, that the forest is the therapist. It really has a profound way of helping us deal with our difficulties. And I discovered that being in nature 1 hour a week can have a profound effect. It really can. During COVID, it was like amazing. Just 1 hour helped me show up in my Zoom community or whatever it was that I was doing. But it's had a very long-term and profound effect. And I noticed that if I don't spend time in nature and weeks go by, I'm a little different. And I just remember, okay, I need to go walk. I need to, reconnect. And it just helps on such a, I'm looking for the right word, just like a level that is, I can't come up with the word. It definitely helps.
Yeah.
So sorry.
Well, Erin in our chat has provided a beautiful quote: "Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished." Lao Tzu. So that's it's a lovely one to sort of pause on. Well, thank you for explaining some of those concepts. And I'd love to move on and talk a little bit about the upcoming course, Focus and Flow, that we're working on together at Take Two. And just to kind of start off, I'd love to understand the course from your perspective and how you would like to help students find connection and healing through their art in the course.
So we go over quite a few topics, and I think the topics are arranged in such a way that it brings students from point A to point B. So first is forest bathing, so that connecting with nature, but then we really do dive into things like fear and overwhelm and creative anxiety, and addressing those things, because I think it's really important to address those things in order to be able to show up and make meaningful work. And then from there, once we've addressed them and worked through some of the things that we can think about and do to address them, then we talk about ecotherapy, art therapy, how those kinds of modalities, even though I'm not a therapist in either one of those things, but I have taken elements from those kinds of therapies and employed them in my own life and in my work. And I've just found them so valuable that I really wanted to share that. So once we've sort of worked through that kind of idea of how to express emotion in art and how to work through difficulties using our art practice, then we dive into quite a few different things. So we do a little photography, and we do some paper making and some paper sculpture and printing. So there's a lot of fun things to do. And I might say that it really is, it can be for anyone. I designed the course specifically so that people without expertise in any one of those areas could go from start to finish, because I really wanted that to be accessible in that way.
Yeah. I'm going to play one of our little videos about the course. I think you just did a beautiful job of summing it up, Karen, and this video might help visualize some of the work that you'll be doing in the course and some of the ideas that you're explaining. So let's take a look.
Nature offers you an opportunity to experience healing. It's something that is readily there. It's a gift. All we need to do is open our heart and our mind and use our senses to connect with and explore. Focus and Flow is really designed for just about anyone. You don't have to have any particular experience to take this course. Perhaps you are someone that has experienced personal loss yourself, or maybe you would like to help someone else even. that is something that we will focus on quite a bit and intertwine it with our creative practices and the techniques that we will learn as we go along. In the course, we start first off with forest bathing. We learn what forest bathing is, how to bathe in the atmosphere of the forest, the benefits of forest bathing, and how we can use our experiences to express our innermost thoughts. We talk about fear and overwhelm. We're going to learn what happens in the brain when we feel anxiety, that there's a difference between fear and anxiety, what contributes to overwhelm, and what we can do about all of those things. We're going to learn photography, using it as a tool for mindfulness, learning a little bit about camera settings, but essentially using it as a way to connect to nature. Next, we're going to learn how to print on oriental papers and on handmade papers, and I'm going to share my love and my experience with all of those beautiful ethereal substrates that you can use for your artwork. Of course, you are going to be so inspired that you're going to want to make your own paper, and I'll teach you how to do that as well. We're going to learn how to use readily available materials, tools and equipment, things that you can use in your own home. We'll even learn how to forage for fibers outside your environment. Adding to that, we're going to learn embossing, incorporating fibers, just a wide range of papermaking techniques so that you will be able to have elements to include in the next module, paper sculpture. I round up the course with some reflection, some things to think about with regard to making art, why we should make art, how it supports ourselves and others, how to resist resistance, and how to let the language of your heart speak. I'm really most excited about the community that we will create together. The sharing of art and experience, struggles and wins. If you're feeling just a little bit nervous about whether or not this course is for you, think about pushing just a little bit beyond your comfort zone. I have found that doing so opens up so many opportunities. This is a chance for you to reach deep within. It's a chance for you to express your inner language, the language of your heart. It's a way to open up those pathways of emotional healing and benefit yourself going forward into the future.
I get a little teary-eyed every time I see that.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's just like when you're filming, you just have no idea what it's going to come out like, and it's just the team puts it together so beautifully.
Well, it's all you, Karen. I mean, yes, we have a fantastic team behind the scenes, but it wouldn't come together without you. So that actually leads beautifully into my next question, is I'd love to know and hear from you what the experience of filming was like and what sort of work was involved and how that all came together. From your, I know how we do it, but I'd love to hear about it from your perspective.
It took me from November to May to create the content. So that would, because there's a lot of theory involved, there was a lot of writing involved. So I wanted to craft the course really well. So there was links to make sure that I had, there was quotes from authors, there was a lot of study behind the scenes also to make sure that I was speaking well and speaking clearly and correctly about these kind of heavy subjects. So that took quite some time. And so by the time April-ish came, I was pretty much ready. And we filmed towards the end of May last year. And yeah, of course I was nervous because, there's 5 cameras on you at every moment. So I really had to dig deep into my performance art, I have to say. And I leaned into my brother for this because he's pretty awesome performer in his own right. And we had the conversation. He's like giving me some. So I had his words in my head as I kind of approached the whole thing. But yeah, early on, I was like the first couple hours, I was so nervous trying to remember. I wanted to say everything just right, you know.
Yeah.
But Deb and Ange and Gary, they supported me so well. They were like, "No, you don't need this. You just speak from your heart." And I was like, "Okay." But their support, just all of a sudden, it just opened up, and I was able to speak from my heart. And I think that's why the course came together so well, is because I just felt their support. I felt like I was being carried by them.
Yeah.
And it was very dreamy. I kept saying, "How on earth did I get here?" You know. and I remember Ange saying, "It all starts with a conversation," and I thought that was so poignant. Because it really did all start with a conversation.
Yeah.
Just a simple reach out, a simple conversation can lead to so many things.
Well, I reflect on this, or I try and reflect on this a lot, is that one thing leads to another, and it might not make sense in the moment, and it's often not possible to plan, but started with a conversation, it turned into filming a course that triggered an interest for you in taking your forest therapy deeper, and then so when you look back, you sort of think, oh wow, you know, all these things sort of come together in the end, which is kind of awesome, I think. For those who are unfamiliar with our offering, we send a crew to our tutors to film the courses, and filming might take 5 or 6 or 7 days, and the crew works really closely with our tutors, like Karen, to develop the course. So there's sort of the work that happens before, all the planning, and then there's the filming. And then there's the preparation for the course launch, which is happening very soon. Karen, the course doors close on Sunday, so we're taking enrollments until Sunday. And that's when your period of tutor interaction begins. So you'll spend 8 weeks with the students in the community group, mentoring and keeping sort of conversations going, and providing feedback and support. And it's worth mentioning that the courses are available for lifetime access. So once a student enrolls in the course, they will have access to that course forever, and access in the student community group as well. But Karen's involvement is that condensed 8 weeks of activity and conversation. So that's, I guess, a bit of information about the course, but you can find out a lot more about that on our website, fiberartstake2.com. So now that I've given that bit of a spiel about the course, Karen, I'd love just your perspective. If you imagine somebody enrolling in the course now today, in 8 weeks' time or in 3 months' time, what would be the one thing you really hope that they come away from the course with? Is there one beautiful thing or goal that you have in mind for your students?
I would have to say that the goal would be to create without restraint. So I'm hoping that that inner critic starts to quiet, that it's put in its place, that it enables you to move forward and not second guess what it is that you want to make. And also just have a framework for creating. Sometimes we do have a lot of different ideas floating around. We might have taken courses from different people. We might like different artists' work, and we're inspired all the time. I mean, for sure, I'm inspired all the time. But I'm hoping that this course helps give you a little bit of like some guidance as to how to rein it all in and start making the work that's meaningful to them.
Yeah, beautiful. Another thing about our courses is the community group that develops during the course, and then it lasts afterwards as well, and how students are able to support each other as well as have support from you and our ambassador. And I'd love to hear a little bit, Karen, about your experience of community as an artist and how you build community and what you draw from community to sort of give and receive, that helps you feel like you're living a life that's more relational than just squirreling away in your studio.
Yeah, and that can easily happen, right? You can easily be that person that just sort of hangs out in your studio. But I realized early on that connection was important, and it is the way to enable yourself to get beyond what it is that, we get very myopic. So I think having community, having somebody to give you feedback, having somebody to give you a little bit of, maybe a tutorial or a mentoring or something like that is like so important. So sometimes it's difficult to do that in your area. It might not be an art-centric area. There might not be groups available that you can show up in person. So online is also a good thing. I find the community that I've developed on Instagram really helpful. I have developed some local community relationships. I'm part of the Midcoast Maine book arts group that has been very pivotal in me starting to make artist books and really loving to do that. Also, cooperatives, artist cooperatives, no matter what level your art is at, an artist cooperative, to be either a guest artist or part of a cooperative is really enjoyable as well. So in our community, in this course, we have the Facebook community, which I'm finding is a very supportive environment. It's a closed environment, so that's kind of nice. But also, it is my desire to create a really strong community, and I'm hoping that everyone there will help me do that.
Yeah, I think it sounds like you've learned to find community in different places, and some things are virtual and some things are face-to-face, some things might be local, some things you need to travel for, but eventually, cumulatively, you end up with connections and people to talk to about your work. You did provide. Oh, sorry.
If I didn't interrupt you, I forgot one community, one big community, which is the International Papermakers Association, which is an international community that I'm a part of. So that has been quite fascinating, actually, being a part of that community for the last this is my fourth year being on the board of that organization. So yeah, we have in-person congresses, and so that's very, very cool too. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's just so cool that there's, what was it called, an international papermaking
online. It's iapma.info. So it is International Paper Makers and Paper Artists Association. It's a long name.
Fantastic.
but yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
I tell you what, this job is so hazardous with all of the different fiber arts and art making practices, because now I'm like, I would like to join a paper making group. Dive into that. You did actually provide some images of your recent bookmaking. Perhaps this is a good moment to show some of those. So I understand this is quite recent work, but I might bring those up on screen. And Karen, if you could just describe them as we sort of scroll through and explain what we're looking at. And what you've been working on recently with this, that would be wonderful. So here's our first one, Cultivating the Heart Sense.
Yeah, so this is the most recent one. So this is a companion to that project. And I really wanted to create a book that was a little bit difficult to open and read. So the pages are a little tight, and there's, you have to sort of like, take a little effort to look at it. And to me, that was a conceptual decision, an intentional decision, because learning about the heart sense and cultivating it isn't an easy go.
Well, and also you mentioned that you work with the soft images because, well, my interpretation of what you said is the softness or the vagueness, because these things are not sharp and in focus. They're things that we feel or sense. So is that part of it too? It's a little bit hard to access, but if you try hard enough, you can open it. Yeah, beautiful. I'll show a couple more. And if everybody's sort of probably leaning into their screens to try and look at these images, so we will link to them in our episode description and show notes so that you can jump on and have a closer look at them after this recording. So here's a piece called Gatekeeper.
Yeah, this was actually one of my first artist books, and I had this concept in my mind that I wanted to be an interactive book. So it's actually 2 parts that you could arrange and change how you want to do it. It's made from cattail paper and Japanese paper, beeswax. And I struggled with this one quite a bit. But once I let the materials take the lead, it came together.
Fighting against the materials, I guess that's a universal lesson, isn't it, for artists, no matter what the medium. So this one is grounded in community, and we have a couple of images of this work. So this is the flat version or flat image.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the sculptural when it's folded, I guess, and standing.
Yeah, this was made from abaca paper, and again, photographic images. They're not quite mirror images of. Actually, this imagery was taken as a still life first, and then sort of like a mirror image applied, but not exactly. So that's what this piece is about.
And let's just take a look at Heart Song.
Yeah, and this was sort of modeled after an ancient Japanese book. So it folds in on itself and closes. And I was literally playing around with all kinds of textures and fibers and woven pieces. And so this is linen actually sandwiched between abaca paper, and then there's cattail paper and woven items and the beeswax covered imagery. Yeah.
And this is an image of it, I suppose, folded up and closed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You mentioned some really interesting sounding papers. Is it something that you collect over time? Are the papers hard to source? Or I'm wondering about students who are thinking, oh, I'm not sure what that kind of paper is or where I might be able to source these sorts of things from. Can you speak to those materials a little bit?
Yes. And I know we have students from all over the world, so it's a little challenging sometimes to find the sources, but we've worked really hard at that, trying to find sources or similar products that could be used, because, there are a variety of things available and different places where you can get them. So we've had one company, Washi Arts, work with us directly to create a pack of sample papers, and she ships, I think, to most of the world, which has really been incredibly advantageous. But then there's other digitally print Japanese papers that you can digitally print on. That so we've got that pretty much covered. I think we've worked it out and given the students some introductory opportunities to start using and collecting some of those interesting papers.
Yeah, there's sort of students will be able to experiment, and it won't be it won't be the end of the world if they can't get one particular type of paper. They can mix in other options and things like that.
And of course, they'll be making their own papers, so that will have a big part. Right?
Yeah.
How they work.
Yeah, that side of things looks so beautiful. I think I'll try and have a go at some paper making while your course is running. I have one more video I'd like to play now. I'll just pull that one up. Karen, I hope this one doesn't make you teary. This is a video that's a little bit about you as a tutor. So I'll hit play on that one.
When I spend time in nature and contemplate the subjects that I've explored already, reading and studying, I can make the connection between nature and the art therapy and the expressions I make. It becomes a very personal endeavor that, again, is universal, but it's a way of really delving into things and now understanding my inner person all the more. I started my artistic journey painting watercolor. I would love to really delve into one process and work it all out to the best that I could and to my vision. So I've done lots of different processes over my life, and I worked in photography exclusively for about 10 years. And then I realized I missed getting my hands in the work. I came to the point where I needed the physical representation of my artwork. And I love working in 3 dimensions, and I love working in paper and sculpture. And it's bringing together all the things that I have done from before into one place now. And I'm so happy to be able to share that with you. When you combine nature-based practices and expressing ourselves with art, the combination is exponential. They're 2 powerful modalities that, when combined, really offer us an opportunity for healing. My art is a way of communicating with others and a way from engaging and conversing and having a share of ideas. Everything is a work in progress. Everything is an experiment, and everything is a way to discover something different and something unusual and something that's uniquely yours. So don't worry about experimenting or being random or putting in exactly what it is that you have in your environment, because I think it's going to make that unique and beautiful for yourself. I love to have the music going, and I love to just let my mind wander and really get into creative flow so I can give my full attention to creating the sculptures. And when I do that, the materials talk to me. They call my attention. They tell me, I want to be crumpled this way and not that way. And when I let that happen, I make my best work. This course is really about healing, but it's also about the creative process. And the reason I say that is because we can use that process of creation when we combine nature, we combine art, to open up new pathways in the brain. It's a chance for you to express your inner language, the language of your heart. My name is Karen Olson, and I'm so happy to be your companion. Let's take the path together towards restoration.
Thank you, Karen. That was that sentiment of the materials saying, I want to be crumpled this way, not that way. I think that speaks for so many things, right? We are coming to the end of our conversation today. So the way that we often like to end our Friday feature artist interviews is with a little game. It's called Every Artist Must. So it's a rapid fire round of questions where we start off a sentence and you finish the sentence with the first thing that comes to mind. So that sentence is every artist must. So I'll say every artist must something, and then you respond spontaneously or with whatever comes to mind. So how does that sound? Are you game, Karen, for our... Fantastic. Okay, let's go. Every artist must own.
Every artist must own their story.
Every artist must create.
Every artist must create work meaningful to them.
Every artist must avoid.
Oh, that one's easy. Avoid letting their inner critic dictate their next step.
Every artist must learn.
Every artist must learn. Boy, I got to take a minute for this one. Every artist must learn. Yeah, I would have to say every artist must learn to show up in a way that's meaningful to them again, because it is in that conversation that meaning happens.
I love that. And finally, every artist must remember.
The artist must remember. To breathe and relax.
That thing, that breathing thing, how is it that we just sometimes forget to do it?
I know. We do forget.
Why do we need to remind ourselves to do that thing? You did so well on that. Thank you. And I'm sorry we throw these things at into our interview, but those responses were incredible, especially the last one. I think I'll take that one with me for the rest of the day. Thank you. Karen, thank you so much for this conversation. Your responses are so generous and honest and inspiring. Well, for one thing, I didn't anticipate I'd be wanting to try paper making after this call, but now that's on the list. So I just really appreciate how much grace and joy and peace you bring to the conversation, and how much you've brought to our team as we've developed this course. I can't wait to see that translate to our students as well. I'm so excited about that. And that brings us to the end of the conversation for our audience as well. So thank you for tuning in and joining us. I hope that in this hour and 2 minutes, you also found that opportunity to breathe and immerse yourself in something a little bit different from the everyday. As we mentioned at the beginning, this conversation is also being dropped in podcast form. So all the images, links to the course that we discussed will be in our episode description and show notes. And now, I guess, Karen, it's time to say goodbye, and I'll play a couple of videos. If you're watching or listening, please do just say a goodbye in the chat to Karen, which I'll overlay as we play the final videos. But Karen, is there anything you wanted to say aside from goodbye?
Just a big thank you. A big thank you to everyone who has already signed up for the course and thinking about it. And I'm just very much grateful, and grateful for the Take Two team as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, I will play a couple of videos and that will be the end of our conversation. So thanks again for joining, and we'll see you again very soon.
I love that idea of words that cannot be spoken. To allow the dance of the brush to be expressed with my subconscious mind, something that allows me to create the language of my heart. If we allow ourselves to simply create, what will we make? We are all capable of profound insight. The ability to see beyond the surface is readily within our grasp. All around us, pulsing with rhythmic exuberance, is our direct link to discovery, our personal discovery. This course offers you not just an art education, but a philosophical shift towards mindfulness. It's great to go outside and see how the lens bends the light in ways that you could never have done yourself. It really speaks to changing perspective and changing viewpoint. I can't really describe how it makes me feel. I think it's just something that really just takes me into another world, like I'm on another planet.
It is my honor
to help you work through some of your fears and anxieties and help them be used for the creative process to be a catalyst for creativity. Crafting creative flow, I think that is the most important of all the aspects, is that you can express emotion into art, but also that you don't have to wait for it. You can craft inspiration and creative flow for yourself, and that is the thing that's going to help make new brain connections and help you see things from a totally different point of view. It may look a little complicated at first, but once you get going, it's one of those things that just is very meditative and really enjoyable. We make marks using our subconscious only. We don't want to edit, we don't want to judge it. It just matters that we actually did it. I think the beauty of the handmade paper is that it's not absolutely perfect. I really love that quality. When you combine nature-based practices and expressing ourselves with art, the combination is exponential. They're two powerful modalities that, when combined, really offer us an opportunity for healing. It's a chance for you to express your inner language. Our human-nature connection is our path to restoration. Take as much time as you need. Let the language of your heart speak.
Thank you so much, Karen. We'll see you next time.
It was a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
Take